So every movie ever made contains errors. Um, and by that I mean like, there's a crew member in the background, a car driving by in the distance, in a period piece movie, or continuity errors, that kind of stuff. I'm going to talk about some of the errors in the movie I made, Once Upon a Time in the Apocalypse. I'm going to go through it, talk about some of those errors, and what I tried to do to fix those errors as best I could. Okay, this first one's pretty simple. That's my minivan right down there. We hadn't intended to use this shot from this angle, but there's cows down there. It's hard to tell what it is, so I thought, we can get away with it. Now this next one, that little ghillie suit cover I'm adjusting right there. I had made one for myself and one for Stephanie, who plays my daughter in the film. I accidentally grabbed hers in this shot, and I was wondering as I was doing this, why is this so short? Why does this not cover me? But I didn't realize until later what I had done. So just sort of had to go with it. I cut out as much as I could, just kept what was necessary for the shot. In this next shot, end of the day, we're about to leave, and I realize I forgot to get this shot. So we were all packed up, but I grabbed the camera, went back, got this quick insert. It was important to me that we saw this. The difficulty was matching the lighting because the lighting had changed quite a bit. All right, and this one, again, this comes down to color grade. So as we're coming up this hill, this was the best angle for this. I really like this. We're looking out into the field, but the field we're looking out to here had a house out there, which is not what we wanted to see. So when we're actually reverse there, we're actually looking back the other direction where we just came from. Now, I think through the magic of editing, it's not that obvious, except for this tree. This really bright orange tree could give it away. So let me take you back. That is the tree there, and it can really give away that we're looking back in the same direction. So in this shot, we desaturate the colors, try to make that tree as inconspicuous as possible, and then in the other shot, boost the colors a little bit to try to make a little more of a distinction between the two and hope people don't notice. And then on another day, we're shooting this flashback scene. We're actually out at my parents' house when we're shooting this, and trying to get all the shots, but for some reason, I forgot a couple of the shots. I forgot to get these shots of the bad guy in this scene as he's coming back from the barn and he's sneaking in there. I could have gone back up to my parents' house, but I found a different spot, a different barn, different house. It's dark enough. I don't think it's very obvious that it's a different house. We haven't seen enough of the previous house on the outside to be able to tell that big of a difference of the two houses. And then these close-up shots, which is actually me doing these. So then we didn't need to have that actor back just to do those shots. I did remember to do that shot. I don't know how I forgot to do the other ones when I was there. So this scene, this interaction between Stephanie and I is meant to be one long shot, sort of like Martin Scorsese. We're trying to have some really impressive oneer shot here. But it didn't come off exactly how we wanted, mainly because it goes in and out of focus a few times, and it just didn't quite work. Now, I still edited it. I left it as one shot. I couldn't, I thought, okay, it's good enough. It'll work. I wasn't 100% happy with it, but I thought it'll work. But now the guy who helped me edit this movie, he's the one who edited this, broke it up, intercut the what's actually happening in like the future of this current scene, and sort of showing you those two different times at once, and I think it worked out really well. Very happy with it. He did a great job. Okay, so in this shot, what I want to show you is, especially anytime you see that light flare in the window, you can see a reflection. Now, Bobby in this scene, he didn't put his full costume on. He's wearing shorts, and they're actually a bright blue color. And so we didn't notice this while we were doing this, but every now and again you can see the reflection, his reflection in the window. And if it's just his arm and a jacket, that's perfectly fine. But every once in a while you see his knee and you see those shorts. So this actually required some special effects to hide that reflection as much as possible, especially when it's really obvious. And so when it becomes really obvious, that's when we throw in a light flare to cover up that reflection. There's the most obvious time that we had to cover it up. This was shot at a very different time of year from this next shot. Again, we had fall colors, and now we don't have fall colors. So I've muted the colors in this scene to try to make it a little less obvious how different the color is. Also, we're driving through fir trees, evergreen trees that aren't going to change anyways, so it's not quite as obvious. And again, hoping people don't notice the difference. Part of the reason why some of these shots were filmed at such a different time is that after I'm editing the movie, I realized I need some extra scenes to connect to have some transition to help the story and to just help the narrative transition from some of these one scene to the next. And so we had to do some extra scenes, and the weather had changed, the things had changed, and well, we made the most of what we could with that. So in this scene, it was towards the end of the day. Some people had to go, and so we were doing as much as we could, as quickly as we possibly could. We were moving fast, and some of this is, I think, some of the best part in the film. But then I had to go back and add in some other things. So some of these shots, I went back by myself, and I'm getting shots of my character moving through the woods, getting my character's perspective. Like this shot, this is just me out in the woods by myself, getting this little extra shot to put in here. Now, actually on the day, it hadn't been raining when we started shooting this scene, and then it started raining. So we got to throw in a shot like this that starts to establish that it's starting to rain. Again, that shot and that shot, both of these shot on a completely different day, completely different area, and then we just have to try to match the color. That also shot a completely different day, trying to match the color. There is a little bit of sunlight reflecting on his jacket, but it happens so quick that most people aren't going to notice that. Again, those two shots, shot later, those three shots, those three shots are all shot at a completely different time from the rest of the scene. Again, this is shot at a different time period, and that is because that shot, you can't see me. And I didn't intend to go to that closer shot, but you can't see that I'm up there, and it needed to have that other shot to better establish what is going on in this situation. So again, had to do it later. It's more important to have the clarity of the story than it is to have every shot be absolutely perfect. All right, and then one more thing. We've got this shot. I think it looks pretty darn good. And because the background is out of focus, we just see the lights of the house, which we've already established that the house has solar panels. And if you didn't notice that, and you think it's a plot hole, and you're wondering, how would they have power in the apocalypse? Well, you just got to pay more attention. But on this next shot, because we go from a close-up, again, and I should have actually done a close-up like I just told you about in that last thing, where we are closer to the actual character who's in the distance because we can barely see him, but he's signaling to this group, and we pull focus from him back to the group, and it happens really quick. But when we first start out, you can see lights in the distance, and I tried really hard to get rid of those, but I couldn't. So it happened so quickly. I think most people will be focused on the people, and so we had to live with it. Okay, now I know there's going to be a lot of people who are going to say, "Oh, there's all kinds of other problems. There's plot holes and whatever." I really don't care. I know this movie is not perfect. It cost us about $3,000 to make this movie. All right, that wasn't the entire budget, but I'll talk some more about the budget sometimes. Some of the most expensive things, are the stuff we can't avoid, like lawyers and SAG, paying for SAG stuff. You know, that costs money, but it doesn't go into the actual film. The actual filming part of it made this for like $3,000. So I'm very happy with what we were able to accomplish, and it's more about people who really cared about what we were doing, and they're wanting to do something. And if to be quite honest, if we had to pay everybody what you normally would pay people when you're making a movie, it would have cost a whole lot more. So I really appreciate the people who helped me out. But you know, I realize the movie's not perfect, but I wouldn't necessarily call those things mistakes. The stuff I'm talking about are things where we forgot to get shots, or we used the wrong prop, or you know, whatever. We weren't thinking about some of the things that could cause us problems when we went to edit the film, and I didn't realize color grading was going to be a lot harder than it actually than I thought it was. So I'll talk about color grading another time. That's one of the things I wished I knew more about before I started filming this film. But overall, there are things that I don't consider having a low budget a mistake. It's going to limit you, and it's going to put constraints on you. That doesn't mean you're making a mistake. So a lot of the mistakes that were made were because, well, it actually was because we were constrained for time. There were certain things in which if we had a normal amount of time to film a movie, we wouldn't have made those mistakes because we were working quick. We didn't have a lot of time to do a bunch of different shots, and we'd run out of time at the end of the day, and we didn't get all the shots we intended. And some of that is because we forgot, and some of that is because we didn't have time. So we got the stuff that was most important in that moment. And then I went back and took care of some of those other insert shots later as I could. I will talk about one thing, which again, I don't think is a mistake, but I would say is, to be honest, sort of some of the weakness of the film, and that is towards the end of the movie. There are scenes towards the end that I'm very happy with and I think turned out really well, and there are scenes that we didn't have a lot of time. They went quick. I would have liked to do more with those scenes, and in order to do more with those scenes, we needed more time. And I think if we had had more time and we were able to develop some of those scenes more and expand on them, they would have been better. Also, some of the weakness of towards the end of the movie is the transitions, where when we go from one scene to the other, some of those transitions are not very strong, and we jump from one thing to another without a whole lot of transition. And again, that's just because we didn't have time to film those transitions and to develop some of those things. So again, when you're filming a low budget movie, you aren't going to have enough time. You're never going to have enough time. So you have to know what is the most important things that you have to get done, get those things done. And I would say the biggest thing I learned making this film is that we did some preparation. I mean, we did a read through of the script. We did some preparation beforehand. I did a lot of preparation, but there is a number of things that I would prepare. I'd know what I wanted to do. I'd know my shot list. I'd know what I wanted to accomplish on a day, but I didn't plan that with everybody else involved. And it would have been a lot better to sit down with everybody else involved, the main actors, all the rest of the crew, and plan those days and plan what we were doing. That way, I can get their input and we can collaborate more, and everybody is feeling like they're getting to have the input they wanted. Um, but we're doing that beforehand when we're not under pressure, when we have plenty of time to sit down and talk about it, instead of trying to do it on the day when we got to get things done and we don't have time to work through a whole lot of issues. We need to know what we need to do beforehand and then just execute it. But then some people can feel like they're getting ran over and they're not getting input, and they can get frustrated, and that definitely happened. So if we had planned, work together, not just me planning on my own or other people planning on their own, but all of us, we get together, we plan, we work through these things, we collaborate on these scenes beforehand, that would have made a huge difference. And that is the biggest thing I learned making this movie, is work with the rest of the crew and the main cast, get their input, and make sure everybody feels involved and everybody knows what's happening before you actually are shooting. All right, that's it for this video. Like and subscribe. Thanks.